both of these two ladies had a challenge meeting last year and did mock trial, right? And then Caitlin had it a year ago, or no, 2 years ago. Sorry, we're in challenge 2. Okay, and so mock trial is, as you saw, a part of that debate strand. And the reason that actual debate is in the debate strand along with geography and along with history is because one of the reasons we study all of that is to be able to articulate politically and otherwise what we should be doing now, right? And so how do our laws work? How should our laws work? What should our court system look like? What should be happening politically? All of that is a part of history. It's our current history. It's developing and unfolding before us. And so mock trial, of course, is an amazing thing in Challenge Me because it really brings together, it's their final. It's all of the skills that they are working on the entire year. Research, writing, speaking and elocution, sifting through information, logical thinking, critical thinking, okay? Mock trial is the culmination of all of those things. And for those of you that haven't heard about it before or seen it, these kids prepare an actual case. It's scrubbed with a few of the details and the specifics, but it's an actual court case that was previously tried. And so they work both sides of the case as prosecution and defense, and they go up against another team, and they'll find out when it actually gets to both sides, but they'll find out when they get there whether they're prosecution first or whether they're defense first, and they work that case. They usually do that in an actual courtroom in front of an actual judge. So it's an amazing experience, and the feedback we've gotten from those leaders is really neat. They've never seen kids this age do what they're doing. And so, so it's a really unique opportunity, but I wanted to let them speak to their mock trial experience and let you guys ask questions of them if you want. So first of all, just introduce yourself, maybe how long you've been in CC, and what you love the most about mock trial. Okay?
My name is Madison Reuter. This was my first year in CC, and I enjoyed all of mock trial, actually. I got to be the prosecuting attorney, and I really enjoyed being able to sift through the information, to be able to ask the witnesses questions and really tear into them, this is how it is. And so because of mock trial, I actually, whenever I'm older, I want to go and study to be a lawyer. And mock trial has really been a great program because we were able to lay out a timeline of everything that happened, and then we had to come up with the questions. We had to come up with the opening and closing speeches. We had to do everything because all we were given was witness statements and basically a map of where it happened. And so I really liked all of it, really. So.
I'm Valerie King, and I've been in CC. This will be my 3rd year now. And I got to be one of the witnesses, which was actually pretty cool and very stressful. We were assigned 2 different witnesses for each the prosecution and the defense. And you had to learn both of those, plus the questions that the attorneys were going to ask. And we didn't get to meet with the other teams, so we kind of had to memorize so much of our witness statement because we didn't know what they were going to ask. So I really enjoyed the experience. It was really, really fun.
My name is Caitlin Booth. This is my 4th year. Will be my 5th year, somewhere along there in CC. And I was also the prosecuting attorney in mock trial. That was probably one of the coolest things I've done in CC, and that's really saying a lot. I also considered going to law school and being a lawyer and all that, but even if you don't take that road, there's lots of opportunities to take that outside of CC as well. Just the confidence you get from learning to be a public speaker, of learning how to ask hard questions and look at both sides, is not only something that's in your final, which is probably the coolest final ever, but also just something that you use in life. You need to analyze both sides of something, to be able to see and find truth and seek out what's said. You have to look at what you are given, look at the paper, the information that you're handed, and pull out what's important and pull out the meaning, just like you have to do with God's word and anything else that you look at and have to analyze.
Can you guys speak to a little bit, what was the preparation like for mock trial? You talked about the fact they were given witness statements, and they were given basically a police report diagram of the crime that happened, and they had to develop a whole case, both prosecuting and defending, from the same thing. So I want you to talk about what you did to prepare, what kind of conversations you had in class after you looked at the witness statements and the diagrams. And the other thing I wanted to note, you had two folks that served as attorneys. So they had to come up with questions. They had to think about both sides and figure out where they could get a question in that would make their side look good. But you also had students that were acting out the part of witnesses, which was also a difficult task because they had to kind of own and become that character if they were the victim or if they were the perpetrator or all of those things. And they had to own that because the attorneys from the other team were going to ask them questions that they were not prepared for. So they're responding on the cuff, in character, in real time, thinking, using logic, how to respond, what's truthful, what's slighting the truth too much, and respond to those questions in real time. So that's pretty amazing. Talk to me a little bit about your preparation.
To prepare to be an attorney, first of all, you had to look at what witnesses you would want to use when. And the biggest part would have to be developing the questions. The lead witness, you obviously have to develop the questions more. So first, you have to look at their witness statement and think, what do I want to get out of them? And then you think, how am I going to ask that? So through the questioning, you have to have all these different lines of reasoning in order to get your point across. And in preparation for this, we all would sit around and we would talk about each witness, and we would talk about their age, their characteristics. We would talk about just about anything that might have something to do with the witnesses. And it wasn't easy, but it was fun, I'd say. And in preparation, it was a bunch of us sitting together and talking about it and being able to work out the solution together. So.
In preparation for being a witness, you had to look over your witness statement. So you were given two different witnesses and you had to read over it a few times. There was definitely a lot of writing it down over and over again so it would stick in my head. The witnesses we really didn't have to get together because we were all different witnesses. So we didn't have, the attorneys did, where they could talk about which attributes you want to get out of the witness and stuff. We did meet with the attorneys though, and they would ask us these questions, preparing us for the actual trial. So there wasn't much surprise coming from them. The more surprise that we got was coming from the other team because we really didn't know what they were going to ask. But it wasn't as difficult, but it was pretty difficult memorizing.
Yeah, there was a lot of preparation from both the attorneys and the witnesses because part of the biggest deal of it was two completely different sets of what you need to prepare for. As an attorney, you need to know both sides in and out to try and weave your case through. And as a witness, you are given a piece of paper to memorize the facts off of. And then you have someone whose specific job is to grill you on every one of those facts and try to whisk you up and get everything in your head all jumbled and make you and your case look bad. And so, I wasn't at her mock trial, I wish I was, but my friends who were the witnesses, I have a couple actors in my class, so it was so fun to see the characters just come alive. But they did an extraordinary job just knowing what they knew, knowing what they believed to be true about their case, about their person, and then standing on that and working with it. And I actually had one of my best friends mess up on one of the questions. He was in the witness box and I was asking him a question. He messed up. It was a yes or no answer. I needed a no, and yes. And so I stood there for a second looking at him. Okay, now what do we do? And he just knows he got it wrong. He just had this oh shoot face. But then we came back and we worked together to regain the ground on our case and go back to what we originally stood for. And as an attorney, that can throw you a curveball because it was a yes or no question. And if he had said yes immediately, it would have been boom, right there. There's the case right there. And he doesn't, so it's just this huge curveball that got thrown. So you have to learn to think on your feet. And that can only come from a lot of practice and what you want to know down. And there's late nights preparing questions. That was probably the biggest thing that stressed most of the attorneys out, because there were 4 of us, 2 for each team. And just learning to work together, because if you haven't been in a class, you get 2 attorneys, and one of my best friends was my attorney. And so we had to spend the night staying up till 3, working on questions, running through the cases, becoming the witness ourselves so that we can test it back and forth. It's just learning to manage a lot of moving pieces and a lot of time, because this is throughout the entire semester, so you're not scrambling the night before to try and win a real case.
I think Valerie mentioned, it might have been Mass, I'm not sure which one, mentioned that they had to timeline the events. It was very important in the cases to timeline who was where when, and who said what when, and what happened when and where, right? They had to tie all of that together because the cause and effect was very important. That was a very important part of both cases. I know what I was gonna ask. Do you guys have any questions of them, of mock trial? Yes? How long does a single trial last? What they did, and it was cool that they got to do this, they would meet with the other team, they would run the whole case. And it took about, an hour and a half? Yeah, hour and a half to 2 hours. And they would break, and then the teams would switch. And so whoever was prosecution was now defense. Whoever was defense was now prosecution. All the witnesses switched. And so they reran the case again. And what was cool was our class actually had the opportunity, we met with a team and competed with them. And then after we'd already done mock trial, we had another team contact us and say, we've got a courtroom, we've got a judge, we've got a team, we don't have a competitor. So we did mock trial again. So we ran the case 4 times, and we had
3 wins.
We had different outcomes every time. And so it was really neat and eye-opening for them to see that it was who told the best story, who communicated well, right? You didn't just lay all the facts out there and the judge could clearly see that this side won every time. One time one side won, and another time the judge ruled the other way, based on the evidence and the way it was presented. And they told us where they might have gotten off, or where it wasn't as strong, and if you had just followed this line of logic, you would have had it, And so it was we got some great feedback from our judges and people. Yes? That was fun. I had a big class, everybody, and they'll go back and forth, like everybody wants to be the victim one year, everybody wants to be prosecuting attorney the next year. And so as a challenge director, you approach that very prayerfully. There are some kind of more major and minor roles, and I told my students that was going to be based on their effort in class, who was the most prepared, who was working the hardest. And they got to put in their preferences for the roles that they wanted. And so I gave them a few weeks of preparation and working together, and we assigned those out. In a couple of cases, it involved conversations with the parents, saying, okay, this role's really heavy. Are y'all committed as a family to doing this role? Or, your kid's trying to take the cop out and take the easiest one of the bunch. Are you cool with him being this role? So we would have those conversations. So it's sort of collectively decided with parents and tutors, and hopefully the kids get their preferences. But I don't think we had, I don't know about y'all's class, I don't think we had anybody that felt like they weren't participating, that they didn't have a part, or they didn't get what they want. I mean, they were all, whatever role they got, they were in it. So, yeah. Did y'all feel the same way? Yeah. Good question. Yeah. Yes, it's an actual case. No, they scrub the characters and they scrub the verdict, so we don't actually know the outcome of the actual case. Because like I said, depending on the presentation of the evidence, the verdict can go either way. And so no matter what their outcome was, the real issue would have been, how was it presented? And that's a huge part of the lesson that they're learning. Okay?
You can't even find the real outcome because
it's scrubbed.
Yeah, it's so scrubbed.
My friend and I spent.
Yeah, they tried to find it.
We wanted to know.
They tried to find the case.
I spent that. We spent probably about 4 hours or so on 2 different laptops, and her little sister jumped in and went for it. And we're like, we can't find the case. We wanted to know so bad, but
yeah. So we never knew that.
It's good